And it turns out Elizabeth Warren has backed off from Medicare for all. So now, if you guys know, we've talked about in the show, her plan for healthcare that she released last month involves first of all, two different bills, a public option first, passing a public option, and then after 3 years, transitioning to a Medicare for all system, which involves a separate bill, a separate fight. So, look, the first 3 years, you can opt into a government plan, which is basically your public option, as I said. And the third year, she would push for a full single payer system, allegedly. And so I don't necessarily believe that would happen. And look, even if she tried, and even if she was, I guess, really focused on doing so, I don't think that she would have good luck. Generally, when you split two bills, you split one bill, Medicare for all, into two, you create two separate fights, which are both going to be nearly impossible. Again, you go back and you look at the ACA fight, that was hard enough. Now you're going to split this up into two? Oh boy, not good. So now, Warren, of course, says, well, that's the best way to get it done. It's the best way to get it passed. So now that was last month, right? So now she hasn't really changed that. She says, that's still my plan. But now she's trying to hype up the public option part by saying, well, it's about choice. It's about choice. In fact, this is during a 3-day bus tour through Iowa. She increasingly stressed the word choice in her interactions with voters, saying the 3-year implementation period would let Americans keep their existing coverage or try out Medicare for all. Quote, we're going to push through healthcare that's available to everyone. You don't have to, but it's your choice if you want to come in and get full healthcare coverage. And then when the people have a chance to try it, when you've had the choice, nobody has to, but when you've had the choice and tried full healthcare coverage, then we'll vote. And I believe America is going to say, we like Medicare for all. Now, there's just one problem there. A public option is not Medicare for all. So it's a completely different type of system. For example, you have to opt in. Is she saying, well, that's a bonus, right? It's a choice. So you can opt in to the government insurance plan, our public option. That's why they call it a public option, because it gives you choices. The problem is you have to opt in, then generally you would pay a premium. Again, it does not work the same way a single payer plan works. Single payer works, and look, there are different ways that they have said they're going to pay for it. But Bernie Sanders generally goes with a payroll tax. Elizabeth Warren, she says, well, we're not going to raise taxes in the middle class. So that means no payroll tax, which means you're going to end up paying a premium. So what's really different than paying a premium to an insurance company? That's the question. And so, no, you're not going to choose Medicare for all, because that current system is not Medicare for all. It's not a try it before, and see if you like it. Complete fabrication. It's a distortion. And it's really, really bad, not just policy-wise, it's really bad politically. I mean, this is a terrible move. So now, here's the thing. Now, the argument of choice is pretty ridiculous, and it's straight out of industry talking points. Now, recently, I highlighted a brilliant Twitter thread by a man named Wendell Potter. Now, Wendell Potter used to be an industry flack for the health insurance industry. In fact, he and Frank Luntz literally worked together in order to craft talking points that the industry is using today, as well as candidates like Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg are using against single payer. That argument was literally the argument of choice that he came up with. So he would know. And so that Twitter thread, and I detailed that on a episode yesterday, it is basically just, again, regurgitated industry for-profit health insurance talking points that now she is buying into. So now here's the thing. They want to talk about choice, right? Oh, we're going to give you choice to opt in. Uh, well, the industry talking points say Medicare for All doesn't give you a choice. Staying with private insurance does give you a choice. And here's the thing. The whole thing is a way to muddy the waters on healthcare and claim that, again, Medicare for All takes away your choice, where we preserving health, the basically private insurance that preserves your choice. But here's the thing. Medicare for All actually provides real choice. For one, it takes away surprise billing by eliminating health insurance networks. You no longer have to worry that what if you see a provider that, yes, it is in a hospital that is in your network, but that provider isn't, and getting a surprise bill for it later. Not only that, but you also get to keep your doctor. You guys remember when PolitiFact's lie of the year was from Obama back in 2013, where if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor under the ACA. Well, that's ridiculous. No, you can't keep your doctor. It depends on your insurance being in network or out of network and then staying in that network. And so that was the big problem here, right? Medicare for All, again, is expanded Medicare. It actually changes it so that you don't have supplementary plans, that you don't have co-pays, premiums, or deductibles. It's your flat payroll tax. So you're a working person, you will see a small tax increase, but you will end up saving much more money in the long run. And so you don't have any of that stuff to worry about. Okay. But again, this is why Warren is talking about choice here. The Democratic consultants and strategists have convinced her that she has been losing in the polls due to Medicare for All, due to her support. But here's why that's wrong. Bernie Sanders is currently surging. He's in a statistical tie with Joe Biden nationally. Now, again, Biden's about 2 points ahead of him, right? And look, Biden is a threat. Biden is a gigantic threat to anybody running. And yet, Bernie Sanders is hot on his heels. Here comes Bernie Sanders from behind. He's been consistent on Medicare for All. So how come he keeps rising and Warren and everybody who's backed their support away from Medicare for All seems to be falling? Again, we saw it with Kamala Harris. She backed away from Medicare for All, put out her, her own idea, which is basically not single payer, but a public option, just like Pete Buttigieg, just like Joe Biden, who was expanding the ACA, et cetera. And she ended up falling in the polls as soon as that happened. And then you've got the same thing with Elizabeth Warren. So now her support has fallen. And by the way, that was her progressive support. And yes, she did have progressives that supported her until this backtrack. Now that support's going to Bernie. Bernie is rising. Now, coincidentally, we find out that now that she's backed away from Medicare for All, she receives the endorsement of 200 Obama administration alumnists. Really? Now, some of which, and I didn't know this before, and this explains a lot. A lot of these Obama alumnists work on her campaign. For example, you have Chief Strategist Joe Rossbars, Senior Advisor Emily Parcell, National Political Director Rebecca Piercy, and National Director of Public Engagement Alicia Johnson. They're all Obama alumnists. That doesn't mean that they're bad people. I don't think they're bad people. But I do think that since they are from the Obama administration, they're very likely to be more your centrist establishment people. And look, that's fine. But they're the ones that are telling Warren, hey, make sure not to go too far left. You can't go too radical now. People like their choice. And right now, you got to convince people that you're not going to take away their choice, right? But again, Medicare for All actually gives you more choice, right? So now, this is the thing. The very things that excited progressives for Elizabeth Warren are the very things that she is turning her back on or putting out way less bold plans than Bernie Sanders is. And for every plan that Elizabeth Warren has put out, Bernie Sanders has one-upped her by actually either having a more original progressive plan that she was a little bit more safe on, or after she puts it out, he says, hold my beer. I'm going to come up with something even more progressive. It's interesting to see that. But anyway, so deeply disappointing, right? And it shouldn't be surprising, though, because of who actually makes up her base. White, educated, affluent Americans. Let's keep it real. That's who supports Elizabeth Warren. In fact, there was one article earlier this month in the Washington Post that points out how her base of support, and one of the reasons that she's moving away from Medicare for All, is because they're worried about having their Cadillac private insurance plans replaced with something that is slightly inferior. Yes, I couldn't imagine losing that and then having to have the same insurance as the rabble. Ooh, terrible. But let me give you that quote here. The fact of the matter is the people who are going to more likely show up to her events are going to be people who already have pretty good health insurance. This is according to Rod Sullivan, a member of the Board of Supervisors in Johnson County, Iowa. By the way, Rod Sullivan, I almost said Rod Johnson there, like a porn name. Rod Sullivan endorsed Elizabeth Warren. So it's not like he's talking bad about her there. He's just pointing out the people that support her most likely have great health care. So they're not the people that need Medicare for all. In fact, he says this, quote, so when other candidates sow the seeds of doubt with them and say, she's going to kick you off this, what if it's worse than what you have? Those people are nervous. Again, oh my God, how dare we get the same kind of insurance as the poor rabble? No, we're supposed to get better. In fact, we're supposed to have the Cadillac plans. In fact, these white affluent people are more likely to have a great Cadillac plan, either through work, most likely, through their employer, as a lot of people get their insurance, or just being able to afford it themselves. And now they're afraid that Medicare for all, even though it would cover everybody, and is the equivalent of the Cadillac plan, let's be honest with that, would somehow not be as good. To hell with anybody else who actually gains from Medicare for all. Oh, no, screw them. I want the best that I pay for. Again, Bernie's plan would be the Cadillac plan, but it would be available for every single American. Again, if you read the legislation, it is incredibly comprehensive. It covers so much that private insurance is generally unnecessary and therefore is unneeded and is actually banned from being able to have duplicative coverage. Because again, why have private insurance when Medicare for all already covers it? So, but these people, all they care about are themselves. And unfortunately, Elizabeth Warren, thanks to her consultants, thanks to all the Obama alumnus inside of her campaign, are now pandering to those people. This is why progressives do not trust Elizabeth Warren. Now, look, I like Elizabeth Warren personally. I think she's a decent person. You can disagree with that all you want. But she's also, and I've said this before, she's a politician. She's a career politician. And she's very concerned about her career. And one of the ways that she shows that is her inability to really rock the boat. She is not a revolutionary candidate. No, she is kind of like Obama, but in the, both bad and good ways. Again, Obama campaigned as a lion, but was more centrist in milquetoast. And Elizabeth Warren, again, she's a fighter on some great things. For example, tackle corruption. I couldn't see anybody better to tackle corruption than Elizabeth Warren. And I hope that she would get that kind of spot in a Bernie Sanders administration. But as far as other things, especially like healthcare or her disastrous foreign policy, not exactly a fighter on those fronts. And so that's why a lot of people don't trust Elizabeth Warren. She is not a revolutionary. She is not a change candidate. Right now, our problems are too big and our need is too great to have a candidate that's only going to work around the edges. What we really need to change the system is a political revolution. There's only one candidate that's offering that. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.